Welcome to speaking lesson number 1, which will give you an overview of the speaking section. Before you start this lesson, you will need to have the following to hand: your training booklet, a pencil, a rubber, and a voice recorder, which can be your mobile phone for recording your speaking test. For the purpose of this lesson, you will be able to read example questions. However, in the real test and all following tests, you should not read the questions, and you won't be able to. In this lesson, you will get an overview of the speaking section and the test. You will hear and watch an example of a real test. You will get some tips and strategies on how best to approach the section, and you will have a chance to practice. Now to the format of the test. The test lasts 11 to 14 minutes and takes place in a room with you, the candidate, and the examiner. It's recorded for two reasons. Firstly, to ensure consistency in quality and in the test itself. And secondly, that in case it needs to be assessed again. There are 3 parts to the test, each giving you a chance to practice and show your different speaking skills. You can't read the questions except in part 2, so you won't be able to read the questions during the practice tests in these lessons either. Now we'll have a quick look at the marking system. Again, as in the writing, it is marked by trained examiners, and they use the band scores as in the writing, and they will also use band descriptors, which you can find in your training booklet. First of all, there's fluency and coherence, which of course means how fluent and coherent you speak. If you hesitate, and why you hesitate. Are you hesitating because you don't know the language, or is it more content and context related, as a native speaker would also do? Then you've got the vocabulary or lexical resource, so that depends on your range and accuracy, rather like in the writing. Then you have grammatical resource, which also, as in the writing, is the accuracy of your grammar and the range of structures that you use. And lastly, we have pronunciation. Now, this doesn't necessarily or only mean your accent. It's more how much your accent would influence the communication. Can the examiner understand you easily? And it's also things like your speed of speech and intonation and other things. Again, you will get 4 band scores, 1 score for each of these band descriptors, which you won't see on your certificate. All you will see on the certificate is the final score, in this case 6.5, as it is an average of the 4 band scores. Now we'll look at each one of the individual parts and the format of the 3 parts of the test. First of all, in the first part, there are 3 sets of short questions. You just have to answer the questions normally. So the first one is always, where do you live or what do you do? Don't worry too much about this one, it's really just like a warm-up. The second and third sets of questions are on other topics. For example, let's talk about accommodation. And then the questions they would ask you to follow up there are things like, tell me about the accommodation you live in, how long have you lived there, what do you like about living there, and what sort of accommodation would you most like to live in? Often they will ask you why or why not after the question. This is to encourage you to say more. They won't ask it though if you've already said enough. And then there will be one other set of questions on another topic. Then now we'll have a look at the format of part 2. In part 2, you have to give a short talk on the topic that is given to you. You will have 1 minute to prepare, and in that minute you can take notes with your pencil and on the paper provided. Then you have to speak about this topic for 1 to 2 minutes. The topic could be something like this. Describe a well-known person you like or admire. You should say who the person is, what the person has done, why this person is well known, and explain why you like or admire this person. So you would then have 1 minute to prepare for this topic and you can use the bullets that are given here and the topic. When you start speaking, you have to speak for 1 minute. So if you don't speak for a full minute, the examiner will ask you to say more. If you speak for 2 minutes, they will stop you at exactly 2 minutes. This is so it is fair for everybody. Everyone has the same time. After you finish speaking, they may or may not ask you 1 or 2 follow-up questions. It depends on whether you have already answered them. These follow-up questions you can just answer in a short way unless you need to speak for longer. Now we'll look at format for part 3. In part 3, you will be given a discussion on the same topic. Here you don't get to read the questions again. So the examiner will ask you some questions on the same topic as you had in part 2 when you gave a short talk on the topic. So for example, for this example about someone you like or admire, what kind of people become famous these days? Is this different from the kind of achievement that made people famous in the past? In what way? How do you think people will become famous in the future? And then they would go on to talk about being in the public eye. What are the good things about being famous? Are there any disadvantages? How does the media in your country treat famous people? And lastly, why do you think normal people are interested in the lives of stars? Now, in this part, you might notice that the examiner is pushing you a little bit, and they will also refer to what you said in part 2. This part takes 4 to 5 minutes. Now we're going to practice the speaking test in 3 parts. You should watch the video of the test which follows after this slide, and you will need your voice recorder. You press record and then press play on the lesson, and the video will lead you through the test. You will hear the questions spoken, and after each question you press pause on the video and give your answer, which is being recorded on your phone. Then you press play to listen to the next question, and so on throughout the test, and leave the recorder on the whole time. You can practice in 3 parts separately, listening after each practice, or do the whole test in one sitting. You should then listen to your recording after and listen for the things in the band descriptions. For example, have you hesitated a lot? Does it sound fluent? Can you actually understand everything you've said? And have a look at the vocabulary and grammar.